everyone. I'm Aishwarya,
Namaskara, Nan Monica.
and we are from Conscious Bengaluru. We are hosting a series of dialogues with aspiring and practicing conscious designers, much like Parul Ghosh from Helsingborg, in the pursuit of continuity and inclusion within the global conscious design community. Welcome, Parul. It's nice to have you here.
Hi, thanks. Good to be here.
Great. So let's start with your journey. The what, why, and how of you came to be a community builder focusing on accessible and inclusive design. What specific aspects of your lived experience, education, or your professional work really led you to this work?
It's a tough question. I don't know where to start, but so a quick background. I'm also from India and I live in Sweden now. But my primary work has been in the area of disability rights and accessibility, inclusive design. And I think that's what I see a lot in alignment with what you do. But so I focus more on policy level changes in India. And I think my journey's changed quite a bit with what I do. But, you know, when you work with human rights or inclusiveness, that kind of stays with you and it really becomes a part of who you are as an individual and what your core beliefs are. So when I came here, I moved to Sweden because of my partner, and I realized that there was, it was very easy as a newcomer, as an international, to be a little lost in everything new. So I took an initiative to kind of build on community, and that just took its own form of making it an inclusive space. So I actually do a lot of things now, but they all, I think the essence of inclusiveness remains in all of them. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just going to keep saying inclusiveness and accessibility because that's really the core of who I am.
Yeah, that definitely explains a lot. I mean, after a certain point in our lives, I think the purpose of work, education, and what we do just comes together. And those are the keywords that we end up repeating in our everyday lives as well. So
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing your experience. And I want to ask you, what exactly is conscious design to you?
I mean, if I had to put it in one word, I would say awareness. I think to be aware of the consequences of what we design, and by design, it could be anything from content to architecture, but not just simply being aware, but also learning continuously to build upon what we do responsibly and sustainably. I mean, sustainable is the new buzzword these days. But what I mean by sustainably also is to do anything without negatively impacting the environment, the community, and society as a whole. For example, when I look at what I do, I've moved from accessibility to, for example, community engagement, which also means a lot of social media management and content. So if I create a nice looking design, but it's not accessible, it doesn't have all text, or I'm talking about doing this for the international community in Helsingborg, but my graphics don't really represent people and the international community, then that's not conscious design. I'm just putting no thought into something that just maybe looks visually beautiful, but it actually has no meaning behind it, and I'm probably harming community and society as a consequence. So from my perspective, it would just be being aware, learning, and improving on what one designs.
yeah, sure, that makes sense. So to take it further, how do you connect your core philosophical beliefs to your engagement with the conscious design community? And what kind of challenges have you faced? I think you started talking about it, but if we can sort of unpack it a little bit more, like what kind of challenges have you faced while contemplating the sustainability of your efforts over time and also the long-term social impact that it can have?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to accessibility and the work that I did with disability rights, for example, which I continue to do freelance. I think in a new country, it's a little tough to kind of get into the local aspect of it, but I do work a lot internationally on disability. And so there's a concept called universal design, and we use that a lot, not just in disability, when it also comes to sustainability. It's basically just the process of designing an environment which is accessible and usable for everybody. And the easiest way is when you say a ramp to a building, for example. It's not just helpful for people who are on wheelchairs, but it's also helpful for parents with a pram. It's also helpful for delivery people with, very heavy uh, bags. It's also helpful for, anybody and everybody. So I think my core belief in that sense would be universal design, but not just for architecture and buildings, but for anything and everything that I do as an individual. So when I create content or I do a project, I make sure then I try and even test it with different people around me to say, is this something that resonates with you? Is this something that you can relate to? So my absolute core belief would just be inclusion, inclusion, and inclusion.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. So when you say you come up with an idea, you try to sort of make sure that, of course, inclusion, bold, italics, and underline. I'm curious about your process. Like, how do you approach research, and then what happens after research, and then what exactly is it, and how exactly is it that you test your ideas? Because from what I know about you, and this is Helsingborg, I think that it would be a really good case study for us to explore this process of yours through that example.
Since you mentioned this is Helsingborg or ThisisHBG, as we call it here, just a quick background of what it is. It's a digital space which started as a consequence of me being super isolated in a new country, a new culture. And I realized that something as simple as everyday information was missing from the community. And I heard of a local fund here called the Vision Fund, which basically provides individuals in actually everywhere. As long as you have an idea for the city Helsingborg, you can apply for a certain amount of money and test your idea. And I think that was also my introduction to the concept of testing, because it was always, I think I may have grown up with the idea that when you do something, get it right. There's no black or white in that sense. Like you have to get it right. There's no scope of gray. So when I came here and I heard of the fact that you can test your idea, and if you fail, that may actually be good because you're learning something from it and you're improving upon your idea. So that's how I applied for money. I actually didn't get it the first time, got great feedback on how to improve. Then I got the grant eventually. And then I created This is Helsingborg. So again, my mistake was to do everything on my own. But I realized that when you talk about community engagement, the biggest word is community. So I need to do it with the people. And it was just like everyday information of where can I get XYZ or what events are happening in English in the city, what kind of funds or possibilities, opportunities are available for me as a newcomer, as an international. So that in a nutshell is This is HBG. And so now I involve a lot of people from the community to try out their projects and, do new things together.
That's amazing, actually.
Thank you.
It's really lovely. And I just want to ask you, how has the response been from the community itself, people who are using your product, which is the website? Yeah.
It's excellent. It's grown quite a bit because I learned to take feedback from people, and I realized that so that was a complete game changer. And now it's almost overwhelming because people message me to say, when are the borders opening? And I'm like, I'm really not the authority here, but it was a great tool during COVID because especially as internationals, you feel very, there's something else happening in your home country. There's a different approach in your neighboring country. Sweden, of course, was a complete outlier during the pandemic. And I just did simple things like, okay, here is where you can get RT-PCRs. This is how much the tests are for. Here is what you need to do if you need to travel, and information like that. And that really helped people. So it's, that's what I've got great feedback, and I'm hoping to make it grow bigger and get more people involved in the project.
We're rooting for you for that.
Okay.
Yeah. What comes to your mind when you explore the person-space continuum in your city, Helsingborg?
So this is a very exciting time to be in Helsingborg, we've got something called the H22 festival that is happening next year. And I mean, it's an expo, but I see a lot of harmony between innovation and technology, but also social entrepreneurship, testing new ideas. In fact, just today, this is great timing because today I tested something called, in English, it translates to a forest break, and it's a room that you can literally have anywhere, but you enter it and it's replicated like a forest. So when you want to take a break from your everyday routine and you want to just feel calm, you enter the room. It's got wood, it's got like little video with and sound and smell and everything to make you feel like you're in a forest. So these kind of very small initiatives which are being tested in the city now, but also involve people. I think a lot of times what happens is when a municipality or a city is trying out new things, as an individual, you feel like you're very far away from the process. It has nothing to do with you, and it's something that governments do. But here, I feel like I see that transition and that shift for people to meet and to be involved. I mean, we've got a lot of placemaking projects which are happening in the city, and I feel like placemaking is such a great example for a community to be in the center of the things that actually impact them. So, in terms of Helsingborg, I think it's the right time. So, if you're ever in Sweden, I know Aishwarya, you are, and I've already invited you for next year. But for anybody who's watching this, I mean, next year it happens in May to July, and everybody's welcome.
Yeah. I mean, it is fascinating because the way you're describing the ecosystem that is prevalent in the city for innovation, that seems dramatically different, and it seems so exciting. What is it that you think that you, as a member or like as an active participant in, say, this international network of conscious designers, what do you expect and what do you sort of aspire for in terms of engagement from other fellows, from other city chapters? And what is it that you think that they can learn from Helsingborg as a city and as, say, as a city that is actually growing in its journey as a conscious city in so many ways?
I think information sharing and learning, it's very easy to, like for me to be doing this here in isolation, but and I mean, I'm happy doing that, but if there is a network of people who are doing interesting things around the world, you can only help each other, right? And the way to help each other is by just learning and doing and watching and reading. So as me, I think I'd just like to know what everybody else is up to. I'm not an architect. I don't design, but I think everybody has some form of a design element in them. We create. We're all creators, right? So that's how I would see it as me personally. As Helsingborg, or Sweden for that matter, there is so much happening that it will just be interesting for me to share as through this network things that are happening. The Helsingborg Fund, for example, is not necessarily just for those who live here, but anybody who has an idea for the city can apply for the fund. So, these kind of initiatives and sharing how people can get involved, that's the biggest learning that I think I can take and give to this network.
Yeah, and in that pursuit, what kind of, like, since you've worked with the community, first without, for the community, and then with the community, so with, for, and what happens when ideas need to be emerged by the community? What kind of challenges do you see or do you anticipate when, say, a group of people get together and they are working towards this vision? In your experience, how does that turn out generally, and what should we be prepared for?
I think, I mean, if I talk about here, because that's really my lived experience, sometimes there's just this fear of getting out of comfort zones. This is not something that I've either worked with, or if I say or do something and it fails. So failure, I think, is a constant challenge for a lot of people, but that's what I and many others are trying to eliminate. That doesn't matter if you fail, you get back up and you try again, or you try something else. I have had a project here which failed miserably, and I thought it was amazing, but but it didn't work. And so that was a good learning for me as well, to say it doesn't matter, or at least I learned something or met other people through the process. So just trying to, I think, constantly engage people. The weather definitely is a big challenge, too, because you only have that limited time to do things, but that's also an interesting challenge for community designers to say, okay, you've got 3 months, but how can you engage people in the rest of the year when you perhaps can't do things outside, but you have to think out of the box and try new things.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, the reason for why we are actually doing these interviews is to literally see, like in a quick elevator pitch sort of a way, that what
Yeah.
can, what kind of communication and what kind of engagement can the CCD actually foster amongst people and in this network. And because, like you said, learning and information, I think they are the essential parts of any network. But what kind of a system drives it is also something important, I guess.
Absolutely,
And
sure.
hopefully, as we look back at these interviews and try to figure out what we need to learn and what kind of information and wisdom we have gathered from it, perhaps we'll be able to design a better system in the future for it to happen seamlessly, organically, perhaps serendipitously. Yeah.
I mean, I also recently, actually where I'm sitting right now, this background, we've got something called Open Space Mind Park in Helsingborg. And this is part of a co-working space. And the idea here is to have an open space where people who want to test ideas, who want to exhibit something, who just want to try and test, basically, are most welcome to use the space for free. So, and I think that itself is such an innovative idea to have that avenue for people to try new things. So this, I mean, just generally, I feel like for the size that Helsingborg is, there is a lot going on here. And I mean, I can only invite everybody to come and see that with their own eyes, but interesting times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Parul, keeping our eyes and ears open to see what's happening in
Thank
Helsingborg
you.
from here on. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time today. And
Thank you, and very happy to be here and to be a part of the network. And I look forward to seeing what everybody else has to say and to just learning more.